let's talk about the concept of innocence. Let's really think about what that means, or perhaps what it originally meant. In our modern world, we tend to associate innocence as it's the opposite of guilt. You are either innocent or you are guilty. And so this word innocent has come to represent somebody who didn't do something, right? You didn't do it. You didn't do the bad thing. You didn't do the bad thing. You're not guilty. Therefore, you are innocent. And you can stand up and say, I am innocent, as if to say, that means I didn't do it. It means I didn't do it. And that can really put it into our heads that doing something, that committing some kind of action, undertaking some type of behavior, that becomes the bad thing. That becomes the thing you must not do, right? That even becomes the sin, because you don't want to be guilty of having done something. You want to be innocent. And that means doing nothing. And maintaining your innocence becomes a practice of inaction, a practice of staying in line, of following the rules, of making sure you never do anything wrong. Now you might consider, what does that do to your state of mind, to your choices, to your emotional well-being, if you are constantly thinking about how to maintain a state of innocence, which in this case would mean maintaining a state of not doing anything that might make others consider you to be a guilty person. Let's instead think of a different way of using this word innocent and the concept of innocence. And perhaps this harkens back to a more ancient understanding. So imagine if your innocence did not depend on what you do or don't do, but what if your innocence itself is a state of being? What if you can act from a place of innocence, and your state of innocence, this divine innocence, it doesn't really have anything to do with what you do or don't do. And it certainly doesn't have anything to do with following the rules that others have put upon you. And it certainly doesn't have anything to do with avoiding the shame or the guilt that others might also heap upon you when they judge your actions. What if innocence is a state of being? What if it is a vibration that you hold, and then you can then act from a place of innocence, and you can do whatever it is that you choose from this place of innocence? And that means that you sometimes might do something that someone else might consider to be wrong, or someone else might consider to be bad. But that doesn't necessarily affect whether you are innocent or not, because your innocence is in the state of consciousness you were holding when you undertook that action, when you did the thing. So in that sense, what would an innocent action be? It becomes so much more involved with your intentions, with what you wanted to create with that action. And if you follow that line of thinking just a little bit down the path, you will start to run into a bunch of thoughts that pop up in your head about how, oh, well, intentions don't always matter because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And you can be very well-meaning, and everything that you try to do that is right and good and well-intentioned, that can end up having bad consequences, right? So these are the fears and the thoughts that come rising up around this exploration, right? But consider this. Those are the lessons that we have already learned, right? We have already lost our innocence in a sense, right? Because we learned that our consequences have actions no matter how well-meaning we are. We learned that even the best intentions can create unanticipated scenarios that, aren't what we hoped. So we are no longer naive in a sense, right? We have already learned the lessons that cured us of our naivete. And that's why I feel like there is an opportunity here to now, with our experience and our wisdom, that perhaps it is possible to return to a state of innocence, which is an evolved innocence, right? It is an evolved innocence that has experience in its pocket, right? That has the learned wisdom of life. And perhaps now, with all of our knowledge, all of our understanding, all of our lived experience, right? All of our understanding of of all of the things that can go wrong, we can return to a state of innocence without naivete. And this opens up a new landscape of discovering what might it mean for you to act from a place of innocence. Since you are no longer naive, instead you are experienced and you are wise, so that will inform your decision making and your behavior and your choices of your actions, so that now you can be innocent once again. You can have a return to innocence in a completely new way. So you might consider what that means for you moving forward, right? How can you act from a place of renewed innocence? How can you act from a place of renewed innocence? What does that mean for you, right? What kinds of things are you now free to do, even in the face of those who might judge you and might try to call you a sinner, or might try to label you as guilty, or might try to heap shame upon you? But what kinds of things are now available to you? What kind of choices and decisions and actions and explorations are now available to you where you can act from a place of innocence, and you can stand and face whoever might be looking at you and say, what I have done here is not wrong because I have acted from a place of wise and evolved innocence. What might that be for you?